Bitcoin Mercury Retrograde. Does the Mercury Retrograde affect the price of Bitcoin? We asked one of our favorite mentors, Jeroen van Lange, this question, and here is his incredibly interesting response. So on these interviews, we talk about scenarios, right? We talk about the things that might be impacting the overarching price action. One of the things Nicola and I were both really fascinated about in your how to become a profitable trader course that we both took when we were both getting back into crypto trading was you noticing about Mercury retrogrades. And that actually fascinated me. Wow, there's actually people out there that talk about astrology. I'm kind of on the woo-woo end. I'm just going to admit that. So I'm a big follower of astrology in general, but it never occurred to me that astrology might actually impact trading. And you were talking about how W.D. Gann first noted that astrology can have a big impact on trading. Talk about that for a minute.
Okay, so basically what I love to do next to trading is I love to read books. And I love to read books about ancient civilizations and hermetic principles. And I'm a big believer that everything is about energy. We are about energy. We are transmitting energy. I think that is the driving forces of the world. If we have a look at the markets, then the markets are also a form of energy. When people are focusing on Bitcoin, energy is going to Bitcoin, liquidity is going to Bitcoin, right? So I think there are same principles involved as well. That it's mainly about energy. When we have a look at humans in general, then and we have a look at, for example, the stance of the planets. And I'm not talking that much about astrology itself. So, okay, what I do think is that if we have a look at the moon, for example, and if we have a look at the influence of the moon on our planet, then the moon has an influence on the behavior of the ocean. If we have a look at human beings, we are also made from a certain percent of water. So therefore, I think the moon can have an influence, even though it is a slight influence on the human energy as well. And therefore it could be rhyming with what we are seeing in the markets. And after that, I was starting to think like, okay, what if this is true? What if it's possible that actually the stance of the planets could have an influence on the energy that's right here on Earth, and that the energy right here on Earth has an impact on the behavior, on the mass behavior of humans? Then eventually we would see that behavior as well in the markets, right? And William Delbert Gann, one of the most famous and most successful traders of all time, had a very high accuracy rate, and nobody knows exactly, except for William Delbert Gann, how he predicted the movement of the market.
So let's talk about the specific effect that Mercury retrograde has on the price of Bitcoin and how it trades in the market. What have you noticed about Mercury retrograde?
So yeah, then afterwards, I've been studying William Delbert Gann for some time, and I've been reading some books from him as well, which are very difficult to understand. He's really somebody who's trying to hide his technique. So you really have to dive deep to check what he's actually meaning, and then you cannot even be sure what he's actually trying to tell. But yeah, what I've been doing is I've been creating a indicator where I can plot certain times over on the chart. That is an indicator you also get in my cryptocurrency trading course. But what it basically does is it is plotting a certain time on the chart. And right here we have the Mercury retrograde indicator. So let me overlay that on the chart. I can do that right here.
Do you want to share your screen?
Can you see your screen
for a minute, Jeroen?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
This is, I just want to reiterate that point about how the moon and planets can affect us. My mum was a surgical nurse, and she used to hate going in to late night surgery if there was a full moon, because there would always be lots of stabbings and fist fights in the city. And I grew up in Wellington City in New Zealand, and it was a dread, and it was a well-known thing that the moon totally affected their evening in the ER.
Yeah, my dad used to say that as a doctor too. There'd always be double the births on the night of full moon. So it clearly has impact on people, and people are what run the markets.
Well,
Yeah,
everything's
exactly.
consciousness, right? Everything's consciousness.
So yeah, what I basically did with this indicator, I've made certain cycles of certain planets, and one of them is the Mercury retrograding cycle, and I overlaid them right there on the chart, and I was just studying them, just checking what actually happens in the times of Mercury retrograding, and could there be any signal showing us that we might be seeing more selling pressure or more buying pressure in these times. And what I found was during the bear market right here in 2018 and further down here in 2019 as well, it was actually so remarkable I couldn't ignore it, and I've been making some videos about it over on my YouTube channel as well. But right here you can see that every time Mercury starts retrograding, which is this green box right here, you see that the price is experiencing selling pressure. So that was actually quite weird for me to see, because right here you see like one example. Okay, we have a second example, then we have the third example. The big drop right here in 2018 was as well in a retrograding period. Then after the rally we have seen right here, we also had a decrease in this retrograding period, this one too. So it's really difficult to believe that it's coincidence. Although correlation is not directly causation, I'm totally aware of that fact. But I do think it is interesting. It is a very interesting correlation that we are seeing right here in the Bitcoin chart. So we have seen some different behavior. So in the bear market, 2018 to 19, we have seen that during Mercury retrograding periods, the price of Bitcoin experienced selling pressure. But if we have a look at the bull market, then we actually see the opposite. We are seeing that the price is accelerating during times of when we are seeing Mercury retrograding. So that is actually the opposite of what we are seeing to 18 to 19, that selling pressure in a bear market, buying pressure in a bull market.
That is so interesting, because Mercury going retrograde is the transformational concept of a time when there might be some clunkiness with technology or disruptions or time delays with communications. So we come into Mercury retrograde, and how that often affects our personal lives is it's a time for pulling back, because everything out there is going a bit crazy. And so we do some inward reflection. But if we transpose that over to this chart and we go, well, in a bull run, we could be going up, and in a bear run, Mercury go retrograde means we could be doing a bit of a dump. How can we deal with that internally? Because here at Conscious Crypto, we're all about managing the emotions and trading consciously. So how can we use this? I mean, obviously, firstly, just be prepared that something might happen, right?
Yeah. So the thing is, like, the thing is that that's a really good question, though. Like, a lot of people would see this correlation and would think like, wow, I'm going to sell my asset at the start of the retrograde and going to buy after the retrograde is finished. Well, I personally don't think that is a good way to use this indicator, because it is never really good to rely based on solely one single indicator, which in this case would be the Mercury retrograde period. I think it can be something you can take in consideration. Like, okay, during these periods, we often see selling pressure. So it's not that I'm going to assume the price is going to dump within the time frames, but I'm going to be prepared. So you can like easily, like, let's say you have like a uptrending support right here, for example, you could say, okay, the moment we're turning forward, the moment that you think like, okay, the price is breaking a certain support, I'm expecting a reaction to the downside. This, in combination with a retrograding period of Mercury, might see something right here in the RSI as well. We have a nice uptrend in the RSI, which we broke out to the downside as well. So right now we have a lot of indications, right? We have we have a bearish divergence, yes. Okay, so right here we have like a uptrend in the RSI that has been broken. We have a uptrend in the price that has been broken. We have a bearish divergence at the end of this in the price, which is signaling us a potential trend reversal, right? So, and we have a Mercury retrograding period, which means that we could be seeing negative energy in the markets, or at least increased selling pressure due to historical correlation, right? So in this basket of indicators, I think it would make sense to include it. I think that definitely would be a valid reason if you're trading. However, I wouldn't use it as a sole indicator.
Right. Yeah. So you'd maybe adjust your stop losses and most definitely set your alarms in TradingView, unless you're Teresa's next door neighbor.
You wake up anyway.
Sometimes our alarms are bang, 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 bang. Nicola, check your trades.
Oh, yeah.
Too funny. So that's a really interesting scenario within a scenario, that Mercury retrograde actually performs differently in a bull market than it does versus a bear market. And here I think here we're talking about the macro trend bull, macro trend bear, right? So we're talking bear or bull on the daily or the weekly time frame, not on the short-term time frame. Are there any other nuances around Mercury retrograde that you've discovered? One of the things I love to dive into, what are the exceptions and what was going on during the exceptions? Is there anything you've noticed with the exceptions at this time, Jeroen?
Yes, we had an exception in the bear market, and that was the thing. We only had one exception. That's also why I think it's such remarkable. And you can say, you can make the argument, yeah, but in a bear market, majority of the time price is going down. So wouldn't it make sense that every Mercury retrograde price would go down? And yes, that argument is a valid argument, would make sense. But if you have a look at these periods, then you see like it's almost at the start of the retrograde that the price starts to dump. That we see a top at approximately the start of the retrograding period. So that was just quite mind-blowing, I have to say. It's really difficult to explain this on a scientific level, right? It's very difficult to really give a clear explanation of what this actually means. But yeah, I do think it can bring a very interesting correlation with the chart. Right here we have an exception. When the price actually moving sideways slightly to the upside in this retrograding period. That was in March 2019, right before we had this massive run up. So yeah, that was the only exception right there in this bear market.
Was there a Mercury goes retrograde in November? Because I remember in November I was watching a lot of YouTubers and they were saying, we're going to have a pump, and I was expecting this pump. But then when I saw where we were astrologically, Jupiter and Saturn I think were conjunct or squared or something. Jupiter is the planet of expansion, so if we're going to get a bull run during a Jupiter run and Saturn's next to it, Saturn's restriction on finances, right? That wasn't going to happen, and everybody was expecting a pump. But it didn't happen until December, and it literally happened the day of Jupiter moving out of Saturn's influence. And I'm just wondering if other planets and what they're doing affects Mercury retrograde and enhances it in some way, or just gives us another scenario to consider.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like also when you study W.D. Gann's work, or I've read a lot of books from financial astronomy from different authors, and the thing is there's so much to include. So it's not only like, for example, Mercury has a cycle, Venus has a cycle, the moon has a cycle, you have conjunctions, you have planets that are opposites, you have certain degrees, you have certain zodiacs where planets could be in. And it all has an influence. So if you really want to be like on top of the game with the certain planets ruling energy on Earth, ruling energy in the markets, it is very difficult, I would say, to almost impossible to really get a 100% understanding of how this actually works, because it is super, super complicated. But it looks like when you study it and when you're reading books about it, it definitely looks like there is a huge influence. And there are a lot of bear markets in the S&P 500 in gold. They have been predicted by the stance of the planets already 20 years before they actually happened. Last bear market, the last drop we have seen in the S&P 500 was also years before predicted, only by stance of the planets, very, very precisely. And that's as well why I've posted on my website as well a blog post about the Shemitah cycle, which is a 7-year cycle, which is actually predicting a huge crash in the stock market this year, September. And I've been already saying that last year, so I thought, I'm going to write a nice blog post about it. I'm going to publish it. So in hindsight, I can show you guys, like, look, we published this in 2020 already, or like 290, I think it was 220, that in 2021, and I think by the month September, we are going to see a huge crash in the stock market. But like you said, it's a macro perspective indicator. Also, like, it's a 7-year cycle, so it can be a couple of months off. Of course, it's not. But yeah, who knows? I think September. Everybody who's interested, they can read that blog post over on my website, the Shemitah cycle. It has been super, super accurate in predicting previous bear markets or stock market crashes.
Awesome. So do you have a blog post on your website about that?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the blockchaintoday.com, everybody. We'll put a link.
And we'll include that in there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, Jeroen's course, which we've both done, is absolutely fantastic for giving you all of the basics of technical analysis and how to trade. He talks more about Mercury goes retrograde in there, and some other really interesting things about the consciousness of the Fibonacci. And for me personally, I did the course over the weekend, and within that first week, just following the pattern trading, I had made a profit. And I think it was beginner's luck, because I did lose a little bit afterwards because I kept jumping into trades. But as I go back to the course and I go back to the patterns and I learn everything in Jeroen's course, it's really given me that foundation to become a profitable trader a lot faster than not doing a course with somebody who knows what they're doing. So the link for that course is below this video.
Here on Conscious Crypto Traders, we're having valuable conversations that no other YouTubers are having. So if you enjoyed today's content, please don't forget to hit the like button and turn it blue, hit subscribe, click the bell icon for notifications, and select all. That way you'll be notified every time we go live or upload new content. We would love for you to post your comments or your questions below, and we'll do our best to respond. In fact, feel free to tell us how your trades are going, or how trading has changed your life or the lives of those around you. That really excites us when we hear that. You can also follow us on Twitter or read it at the links that are down below. And if you're new to trading, we also have links to Phoenix or Bybit down below that includes loads of bonuses. All proceeds from this channel go to support the development of our conscious community here in Costa Rica, which helps provide a lot of jobs in the local region. If you're interested in more hand-holding with your trading, especially with your strategy or your emotions, Nicola actually runs an advanced mastermind weekly, and the link to sign up for that is also down below. Thanks for watching all the way to the end, and we'll see you in the next video, which you can find right here. And until then, trade consciously.